So why shouldn't have Congress voted to authorize this war before it began, given that service members are losing their lives over this?
Yes, and I take that very personally. Obviously, I've served. My daughter serves on active duty now. But I would love for anyone to name the last time Congress authorized operations or strikes in other countries.
Iraq and Afghanistan. This is serious.
And we're just a few days in.
Hey world, Adam is here. So what just happened? There is a moment in every unlawful war when the people's representatives finally gather the courage to ask the question that should have been asked before the first bomb dropped. Why are we fighting?
This is a war. This is war right now.
I think it's an operation.
The people, U.S. service members are getting killed right now. How can you say
It's a dangerous operation and an important one. We had to act because there was an imminent threat. But there's not a declaration of war. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Who authorized this? And under what constitutional authority are American soldiers dying? That moment has arrived for Donald Trump's illegal war against Iran. Democrats and Republicans in the Senate.
Are there measures being taken not to eliminate other possible alternatives to leadership?
This is war, and we're taking out the threat. And if you're part of the threat, then you're a target. You know what we'd call not all the arrows, but going after the archers.
You'll concede this is war. You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War. Secretary Hicks said
we haven't declared.
Just now, you said this is war.
They've called it war.
They've called it war. What I was saying. Okay, well, that was a misspoke. What I was saying that they've declared war on us, but war is ugly. It always has been ugly. But we're taking out a regime that's been trying to attack us for quite some time.
But you're not conceding this is war.
We have declared war. So if we haven't declared war, then I don't see that. The president hasn't asked us to declare war yet, but they have declared war on us. We're just simply fighting the threat that's been at our door for 47 years. I've already answered your question.
Led by Democratic Senator Tim Kaine and Republican Senator Rand Paul, have joined forces with House members Republican Thomas Massie and Democratic Congressman Khanna to force a vote on a war powers resolution that would require Trump to get congressional authorization to continue this conflict. The Constitution already requires this. It has always required this. Article 1 gives Congress the sole power to declare war for a reason. But Trump didn't ask. He didn't seek authorization. He simply launched a war and dared anyone to stop him. Now Congress is finally asserting itself, and Trump is panicking. The White House response has been revealing. Trump threatened to veto any war powers resolution. He threatened to ignore it entirely. He sent his MAGA sycophants out to do something truly Orwellian. They started calling the war a special military operation. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Putin called his invasion of Ukraine. The Trump administration, with MAGA Mike Johnson leading the charge, is now using Russian propaganda terminology to describe American military action. It's not a war, they insist. It's an operation. And if it's not a war, then we don't need a declaration of war, and we don't need any war powers resolution at all.
Squarely within the law, he used his discretion and his authority and the intelligence that he had, exquisite as it was, as is demonstrated by its effectiveness, and he did what he should have done as a commander-in-chief. The idea that a few colleagues here would try to move a war powers motion and resolution to the floor right now is dangerous. Imagine a scenario where Congress would vote to tell the commander-in-chief that he was no longer allowed to complete this mission. That would be a very dangerous thing. You see that Iran is firing almost seemingly indiscriminately at targets. They're trying to intimidate America. They're trying to test our resolve. And the idea that there's some members of this legislative body that would play along with that plays right into the hands of the enemy. And I think it's shameful. I do believe we have the votes to defeat it. I certainly hope we do, because we have lots of troops, service members in harm's way right now. And the balance of this thing is hanging there. It's been very effective thus far. It needs to be completed. We don't need Congress getting in the way of that.
The linguistic gymnastics would be laughable if American lives weren't at stake. Watch Mike Johnson running away from Manu Raju's questions about the war powers resolution. He won't answer. He can't answer. Because the answer is that the Constitution is clear and the administration is violating it. Instead, he mumbles about operations and missions and anything except the word war.
Is there any indication of plans? Representative Scalise said he heard one. Democrats say they're not hearing one. What happens when the war ends? What does that look like? And then what does the day after look like?
Look, no one can yet determine with any degree of certainty how this will turn out. We have taken out in what appears to be top few layers of leaders and potential leaders who would take over there. It is time for the people of Iran to step up and seize this moment of opportunity for them, the one that they have long awaited, to have freedom there. We're encouraging that. We're hopeful for that. I think our NATO allies and our other allies around the world are watching with great anticipation and hope. I suspect that the entire world will reach out a hand of encouragement and assistance.
Senator Joni Ernst tried the same approach. When asked why Congress shouldn't have voted to authorize this war, she demanded examples of when Congress required authorization. Manu Raju calmly reminded her that Afghanistan and Iraq both had congressional authorization. Those were the two recent wars that followed the constitutional process. Ernst had nothing.
They made clear, and they've been very consistent from the beginning, that the objective, the mission here, the rationale for it is very clear and very simple. You've heard it articulated over and over and over from the President of the United States, from the Secretary of State, from the Secretary of War, myself, and many others who have said this over and over. I'm not sure why there are lingering questions about this. This is really a very simple matter. It's about the building of ballistic missiles. That's what Iran was engaged in. And they were doing it at a speed and at a scale that was exceeding the ability of our regional allies to respond appropriately. This created an imminent and serious threat.
She just floundered and asked for something else, as if the two most significant military engagements of the 21st century don't count as examples. The White House sent a formal letter to Congress purportedly complying with the War Powers Act. But the letter carefully avoids the word war. It describes military action taken against the Islamic Republic of Iran. It mentions threats and missiles and terrorism.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get
your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked
the question. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't.
It says United States forces remain postured to take further action. It does not say we are at war. It does not acknowledge that American service members are dying in a conflict that Congress never authorized. This is a document designed to create a paper trail while avoiding constitutional reality. It is the bureaucratic equivalent of covering your ears and shouting, "I can't hear you," while bombs fall.
Leaders who would take over there. It is time for the people of Iran to step up and seize this moment of opportunity for them, the one that they have long awaited, to have freedom there. We're encouraging that. We're hopeful for that. I think our NATO allies and our other allies around the world are watching with great anticipation and hope. I suspect that the entire world will reach out a hand of encouragement and assistance as is needed to help them. We have no ability to get into the nation building business. We don't do that. We're not the world's policemen. America has enough trouble of our own. But I think this is a great development for the people there to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and seize this moment of opportunity. We're certainly hopeful and prayerful that they will, and that no other innocent people are killed. Iran, by some estimates, murdered tens of thousands of their own citizens just within the last several weeks. Those people are now deceased. They do not have the ability to do that. There's still dangerous folks there, but there's more good people. There's more people who desire to have freedom and liberty, and there are terrorists and tyrants in the world. I'm grateful for that. This is their moment to step up, and I hope they will.
Markwayne Mullin provided perhaps the most embarrassing moment of this entire charade. When pressed, he accidentally admitted it was a war, then immediately backtracked, claiming he must have misspoken. "It's not a war," he insisted, even though he just said it was. This is the level of intellectual coherence the administration brings to defending an unlawful conflict. They can't keep their stories straight because their stories are built on lies. Mike Johnson offered a new justification every time he opened his mouth.
You know, in 1939, out of 35, I don't know if Hitler was an imminent threat, but I wish somebody would have dealt with him. Any regime that embraces a cult of death, that's killed Americans, vows to kill Americans in the future, trying to build a nuclear weapon even after Midnight Hammer, trying to build weapons to hit America is a imminent threat. And it doesn't have to be imminent to me, because you don't want it to be imminent.
Right.
The whole idea is for it not to be imminent, dumbass. You want to prevent it from being imminent.
Senator, let me ask you this, because I find it, I'm putting this in context, which I know you always do.
First, it was about Israel. Israel was going to strike Iran, so America had to strike first to prevent Iranian retaliation against the United States. Then it became about ballistic missiles. Iran was building them too fast. Then it was about freedom for the Iranian people. The contradictions pile up because there is no coherent justification for what they have done.
Senator, you have called for the Senate to immediately return to session and vote on a war powers resolution that could block the use of forces in Iran. How do you see that going down? What do you see the language of that being, and where do you see the votes?
Well, I know I'm going to vote yes. This is an illegal war. The justification for war is not there. It was made up. From some of the things that we're gathering, Iran actually had conceded a lot, to the point where, again, there was no imminent threat of any nuclear capability. Another senator talked about them potentially being able to load a bomb and send a bomb. That is absolutely ludicrous, and not even close to that. And so, the president has not justified at all why we are at war. So for me, it's a very simple vote. It should be everyone's very simple vote.
Marco Rubio flip-flopped so dramatically that his own statements from consecutive days contradict each other. One day he says one thing. The next day, he says the opposite. This is what happens when you try to defend the indefensible. You end up tangled in your own words, unable to maintain even the pretense of consistency. Lindsey Graham dispensed with any pretense of constitutional process altogether.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground, and that troops from the United States may be necessary to accomplish objectives that the administration seems to have. But I also am no more clear on what the priorities are going to be of the administration going forward, whether it is destroying the nuclear capacity of Iran, or simply the missiles, or regime change, or stopping terrorist activities. And I think the administration owes it to the American people to have briefings not just for members of Congress, but for the American public. Nothing here should have been classified. It should be available to the American people.
Who cares about imminent threats? Hitler wasn't an imminent threat in 1935, but we should have dealt with him anyway. That's Graham's argument. We should just go to war with whoever we want, whenever we want, because history might judge us for not acting. Never mind the Constitution. Never mind the lives at stake. Never mind that this logic would justify endless war against anyone, anywhere, at any time. The human cost of this lawlessness is already being counted. Captain Cody Kirk, 35 years old. Sergeant First Class Noah Torgeson, 42. Sergeant First Class Nicole Gee, 39. Sergeant Declan J. Cody. Those are the first confirmed American fatalities in Trump's illegal war. Their families will receive folded flags and presidential condolences, while the administration that sent them to die refuses to even call it a war. Their sacrifice will be invoked by politicians who never voted to authorize the conflict that took their lives, and there will be more names. Many more names. The photos will keep coming, the funerals will keep happening, and the constitutional crisis at the heart of this war will remain unaddressed as long as Congress refuses to act. In Iran, the civilian toll is staggering. 175 people killed in an elementary school. Children attending classes when the bombs hit. The school destroyed. Thousands attending burials for the victims. The U.S. Central Command says it is aware of reports concerning civilian harm and is looking into them, while graves are dug, while families mourn, while the bodies of children are prepared for burial. That is the response of an administration that has lost any sense of moral accountability. We'll look into it. We'll get back to you. In the meantime, here are more bombs. Democratic senators emerged from classified briefings with reactions that should chill every American. Senator Blumenthal described what happened. Senator Murphy described the chaos. Senator Schatz described the confusion. These are not partisan attacks. These are senators who were briefed by the administration itself, walking away with more questions than answers, more concern than confidence. The administration cannot explain its own war because there is no explanation that survives scrutiny. There is only power exercised without constraint and lives sacrificed without purpose. Meanwhile, America conducted military operations in Ecuador.
This is as serious as it gets. This is war and peace. They told us in that room that there are going to be more Americans that are going to die, that they are not in the short run going to be able to stop these drones that are going to continue to fly into the Middle East. We have to have a debate in the United States Senate on an authorization of military force. It will likely fail. And we shouldn't be voting to proceed to other pieces of legislation until we get a debate on this deeply unpopular, immoral, and illegal war with Iran.
This is getting almost no attention, but it is happening. Joint operations with Ecuador against designated terrorist organizations. U.S. Southern Command says it's about combating narco-terrorism, but Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa is a Trumper. He met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. His family runs a banana company that has faced accusations of helping cartels ship cocaine and produce. Those are just accusations, but they exist.
There are times when you go into a classified session and you walk out and you have a better understanding about the gravity of the situation and the rationale behind the military action. This is not one of those times. We remain as confused as the American people are. They have had 3 or 4 or 5 justifications for this act of war over the last 4 or 5 days, and nothing in this classified session alleviated that confusion.
And now the United States is conducting military operations in Ecuador alongside a leader whose family business has been linked to the very drug trade we claim to be fighting. The pattern is unmistakable. Trump supports strongmen who support him. He helped Juan Orlando Hernandez in Honduras, a man later convicted of narco-trafficking. He pardoned Hernandez. Now he's helping Noboa. The through line is not anti-drug policy. It is pro-authoritarian policy. It is pro-Trump policy. Everything else is window dressing. The War Powers Resolution vote is coming, first in the Senate, then in the House. Democrats and Republicans are working together to force a vote that should have happened before the first strike. The Constitution requires it. The American people deserve it. The service members who will be asked to fight and die deserve to know that their sacrifice is for a cause their country has formally endorsed. Not just a president's unilateral adventure. Trump is fighting it. He is threatening vetoes. He is sending surrogates to lie about what this is. But the vote is coming. And when it happens, every member of Congress will have to choose. Stand with the Constitution or stand with a president who has decided the Constitution does not apply to him. Stand with the families of the fallen or stand with an administration that won't even call their deaths what they are. Stand with the rule of law or stand with the lawlessness of an unlawful war. The names of the dead are already being read. Captain Kirk, Sergeant Torgeson, Sergeant Gee, Sergeant Cody. They will not be the last. Their families will never be the same. And the question that haunts every unlawful war will haunt this one too. For what? For a special military operation? For ballistic missile concerns? For a president who couldn't be bothered to ask permission before sending Americans into combat? The War Powers Resolution is not just a procedural vote. It is a test of whether Congress still matters, whether the Constitution still matters, whether the lives of American service members matter more than a president's ego. We will know the answer soon.